it's Claire here from JH Coaching. Today I thought we'd look at heart rate monitors and in particular how you train with a heart rate monitor. I've been using and training with a heart rate monitor for years, and I have to say it's really helped me in terms of pacing in training, not over-direct training, keeping my easy runs easy and helping me pace my races as well. Where do you start? The first thing to do is to get a heart rate monitor. You can get watches. This one in particular is a Garmin Forerunner 45, which has a little bit of a monitor on the back of the watch which reads the pulse through your wrist. They're okay, but they're not particularly accurate. But I have certainly worked with athletes who've used that. My personal preference is for a chest strap. They come in various shapes and sizes. This is a Garmin Duo, which I particularly like because it's quite a nice big captor. And although you can think, big, that's not great, it actually means that there's a better signal coming from it. Usually these days the strap is soft and the actual captor just easily clicks on, like so. Once you've put it on your chest, sort of on your breastbone just here, and you've made sure that it's nice and snug, it's not going to slip, all you need to do is connect it to your watch, which you can do by following your own watch's instructions, whatever they are. And then really get out and run with it. First of all, don't worry too much about the readings, just get out and run with it and record your heart rate readings for a good couple of weeks to see what's happening. Within that 2 weeks, it would be ideal if you also did some kind of threshold test. I'll put a link below to an article by Joe Friel which takes you through how you can work out your threshold heart rate and what kind of tests to do. The reason why it's good to do a threshold test is because then you can work out all your other training zones from that threshold heart rate test in the same way that you would for your functional threshold pace or your functional threshold power. Once you've done your test and you've had a little bit of fun just running around with it, doing your usual training, you can then think about setting your heart rate zones. Again, Joe Friel's article goes into this in quite a lot of detail, so again, look at that carefully to see how you can do that, or check out John's article on our website if you want more information on that. Once you've set your zones, you can now start training to those specific zones. And this is where it gets really interesting and where you can really optimize your training. Because ultimately, in a 7 zone, for example, like Joe Friel's system, the majority of your training wants to be in zone 2, aerobic training. I tend to find with a lot of athletes who are just new maybe to running to pace, set pace and set heart rate, is that they're not very fit in the zone. So it's very difficult for them to keep a pace in this zone. The beauty of it is it's highly trainable and you tend to get relatively quickly in the zone, fairly quickly. And you know you'll get quicker in that zone because what will happen is your heart rate will stay the same, but your pace will increase within that zone. This is great because what you're effectively doing is you're pushing all your other zones up, so you're getting fitter in all your zones, number 1. And number 2, you're learning to run economically, so you can run faster for less cost, basically. You can see that I've done this in the past, and I do it periodically in my base period every year. But if you look at the picture above, you can see that there are 2 training sessions here, both exactly the same route, both at the same heart rate, but one is significantly quicker than the other. And all that means is that I've got quicker and more efficient at that heart rate. This is really good for any type of training. It's a really good strong base to have, but particularly if you're looking at longer ultra stuff, you need to be able to keep going at less cost, so it's perfect training for that. Once you've got your majority of training, sorry about that noise, that's my dog changing his sleeping position. Once you've got the majority of your training in zone 2, you can then start to add some harder sessions in. You can do some training at threshold because you know what your threshold heart rate is, and that will help you become more efficient at turning over lactate. And you can do some even faster training as well. A word to note with faster, shorter reps of less than a minute, your heart rate takes time to respond. So although you may be working hard, that's not going to be reflected necessarily in your heart rate. And for those shorter sessions, it's usually a good idea to use relative perceived exertion or to check your pace if you look at pace as well. You can also do some work in your tempo zone, and training all these different zones is going to help you become a better, well-rounded athlete. What you choose to focus on, whether you choose to focus on some threshold work or some faster, shorter efforts or some more tempo runs, will depend very much on your goal, race or adventure. So have a think about those things. Talk it through with someone who's experienced about them, and then you would plan your training accordingly. It also depends whereabouts you are in your annual training plan. At certain times of the year, you want to be focusing maybe on some tempo work or some threshold work. At other times, you want to get a bit of fast speed in your legs and be looking at some short, sharp efforts. Really, once you've done all those things, the only thing that then remains to do is to redo the test periodically, because your threshold heart rate will change as you get fitter, specifically if you're training in that threshold zone as well. Redo the test probably about every 6 weeks, just to make sure that your training zones remain accurate and relevant for you. Just a couple of things to be aware of with heart rates. They are a great piece of equipment, and I really enjoy training with them and do recommend that all my athletes use them. But do be aware of spikes. And so if you're looking for your maximum heart rate, it might not be the 210 that you see in one little spike on one run, especially if it's an easy run. They're not perfect, sometimes they move against your chest, so it's usually a good idea if you've got an unusually high reading for a run to have a look and think, what happened? And you'll be able to see on the trace. There's an example here that I can show you, and you can see clearly that the spike there, it's likely to be a spike rather than something that's part of training. We just want to be aware of that because that can skew with our data a bit. On some programs like Training Peaks, you can actually smooth those spikes out, which is quite satisfying. Another nice thing about your heart rate monitor is it's a really good way to check in with your general fitness. So just as you can know when you're off pace, you can know with your heart rate whether maybe you're feeling a bit tired or overtrained. Usually what happens is it starts to behave a bit unusually. So it might become very sluggish and unresponsive. So you might think, I'm working quite hard here, but my heart rate is really still low. That's probably a sign that you're feeling quite tired and it's maybe time to back off and have an easy run or an easy few days. Similarly, sometimes your heart rate can be shooting up really quickly, and again that can be a sign that maybe you're a bit tired and you need to take things easy for a bit. I hope you've enjoyed this little summary of heart rate monitors. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this, do hit the subscribe button, and if you click on the bell then you'll always know when we put a new video on our channel and you'll never miss one. Happy training, and happy training with your heart rate monitor.